Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang Dhammang Sanghang Namasami. So, I'd like to start by welcoming everyone this evening. Um, so, as everyone probably has already noticed and are experiencing, that the holiday seasons are coming closer, just a few weeks away till Christmas, and so Um, I've noticed that things are getting quite busy for a lot of people. There's lots to do. There's lots of activities going on. It's coming to the end of the year, so a lot of people can feel quite overburdened, quite stressed, and just very busy. And it really reminds me of this instance what happened when I was a junior monk. So when I was a during my fifth rains retreat, Lumpur Biak came to visit Wat Pah Nanachat. I was spending the rains retreat at Wat Pah Nanachat, and Lumpur Biak came to visit. And I was with Lumpur Biak and Ajahn Kavli, who is the abbot of Wat Nanachat, and we were going through the parking lot of the monastery. And the parking lot is right in the monastery, so it's in the forest. So there's a lot of like humongous trees right there in the parking lot. And this, um, so you're right in the forest. And one of the things at Wat Pananachat, we have these signs on the trees with different Dhamma sayings, different quotes. Some from the Buddha, a lot from Lungpor Cha, and some from other ajahns and other teachers, and there's some in Thai and but most in English, or a lot of them in English. And Lumpur Biak is fluent in English, so we were walking, going by, and there was this one sign, and it was a quote, a little Dhamma teaching from Lumpur Cha, and it said, "If you have time to breathe, you have time to meditate." And Lumpur Biak pointed this sign out to Ajahn Kavli, and he said, "That's not correct." He said, "That's not the actual quote." He said, "It's not if you have time to breathe, you have time to meditate. The quote is, if you have time to breathe, you have time to practice." And so it's a subtle difference, but it is an important difference, and it is important um, to make that distinction. And so there's a lot of Dhamma practice and a lot of things we can do for practice in our daily lives outside of our meditation. And I think some of this can be particularly important at a time like the holidays, when a lot of people might feel they don't have a lot of time to do formal meditation. So one of these practices we can do, and it's sometimes a lot of people don't realize that this is a practice, is the practice of Sila, or the practice of our morality, our conduct by our body and speech, our actions, and the things we say. And so, they take up a whole section in the Noble Eightfold Path, the path of practice that the Buddha had laid out. And, the very basic standards are what are called we translate them as the Five Precepts. But it's interesting because the Pali word for them is sikapadas, which actually means trainings. So these are trainings that um, we choose to undertake. We choose to practice sila. We choose to practice this level of morality. So it's not we're being forced into it. It's not the Buddha laid down these commandments. You must do this. It's he said there's a lot of benefit to keeping this level of sila, and benefit for yourselves and benefit for people around you. So you should try to undertake these trainings. And so the five precepts are not to kill, not to steal, um, to avoid sexual misconduct, not to lie, and to avoid intoxicants and drugs and alcohol, any intoxicants. And, the Buddha talked about this, and these are gifts to other people, because we're giving other people this gift of fearlessness. When we have Sila, when we're keeping our morality, when we're keeping the standards of our behavior, people don't have to worry about us. They don't have to worry that we're going to kill them or harm them or steal from them or lie to them or cheat on them or get drunk and rowdy and out of control around them. So we have we're giving them this gift of fearlessness, and so I thought I'd maybe just go through these five precepts this evening. So the first one is not to kill, and so pretty straightforward, is to avoid intentionally killing living beings. And it's interesting. Again, for the monks, we have these set out in our monk rules. We have to avoid this. And it's interesting because some of the rules we have, the Buddha sets in allowances or sets in little uh, procedures that we can um, not get around a rule, but there's ways to do it. So, for example, for monks, we're not allowed to damage trees or damage any like plant life, but we're allowed to. There's certain words we can use and certain phrases where we can kind of hint at to get someone, a layperson, to do it, and where we're not actually breaking the rule. But for killing, there's no it's called kapya wohara, so like allowable speech. There's no loopholes or little ways around it. We can't get people to kill, and we can't kill ourselves. And so, this is a basic one, but it's good to remember, this is intentional killing. So, there was this uh, case from, I think it was in the Vinaya, and there was this monk, and he was an arhat. He was completely enlightened, fully enlightened, and he was doing walking meditation, and he was stepping on ants, but he was blind. He was a blind arhat, so he didn't realize he was stepping on these ants. And another monk went to the Buddha and was like, snitching on him, was like, this monk stepping on the ants. And so the Buddha explained to him that, it's done intentionally, it's an intentional act. So sometimes, we can unintentionally, accidentally, not thinking, kill an animal. Usually that's like mosquitoes or insects, you go to brush one away and maybe accidentally kill it. But so so that's not breaking the precept. That this is intentionally killing. And the next one is stealing or taking what's not given. So again, this one's pretty straightforward. We don't want to go around taking stuff from people. It can create so much disharmony. It can create so many problems from people. Someone's worked really hard to get something, and we take it from them. And it's actually, for monks, stealing is a very, very heavy rule. Like we are really not allowed to take anything which isn't offered. And you see, lay people don't have to practice like this, but for monks, when people offer us food, it actually has to like be handed directly to us. For us, it can't even be like, oh hey, there's some food on the table over there, you can go help yourself. It doesn't work like that. It'd be a little more a little easier, but this way, so there's no confusion that we're that whatever is given to us is given to us, that it was intended for us and for our use. And so and then the third precept is against sexual misconduct. And I always find it really funny when uh, uh, monks are giving talks about the five precepts. They usually explain not killing in a lot of detail, not stealing in detail, and then the sexual misconduct, they just kind of go, oh, avoid sexual misconduct, and then go on to the next one. But when the Buddha explained it, it was basically against stuff like pedophilia, adultery, rape. So these types of things, pretty much understood, because these can be really, really harmful to us, really harmful to the people around us. It can really, it can really damage people, damage their whole lives just by some careless act we do, acting on too much lust. But the fourth precept, and this is the one I actually really wanted to emphasize and talk more about tonight, was on the precept not to lie. And and so again, this is to not tell intentional lies. But I want to kind of expand on this. So in the five precepts, it just says not to lie, and to avoid lying. And again, it's intentional lies. But when we really get into the about the Buddha's teaching on right speech, he expands it and goes more into uh, more detail, and expands it to more factors than just not lying. So when I was staying with Lumpur Biak, there was a couple of lay women who were getting being a little malicious with their speech. They were getting really gossipy and starting to really say some not pleasant things and try to create problems for people behind their backs. So Lumpur Biek gave a Dhamma talk about this. And this is exactly what he's saying. He's like, yeah, the five precepts says not to lie, but when you get into the eightfold path, and we chant the eightfold path all the time here, there's actually a lot more, there's more factors to it. So it's good that when we're thinking of developing right speech, to not just focus on not lying, but to expand that, because there's so much problems and harm we can create with our speech. And the Buddha gave it a lot of importance in the Noble Eightfold Path. So this path of practice the Buddha set out, an entire factor of that. So one of the eight factors is entirely on speech, because speech can be so harmful. And there's that old saying, like, sticks and stones can break my bones, but names will never hurt me. Well, the Buddha didn't say that. He said we're all born with a double-edged blade in our mouth, and when we speak, we can cut other people and cut ourselves at the same time. So it's so the Buddha really emphasized that speech can really hurt. So, of course, the first one is not to lie and to avoid lying. And this can be it's intentional lying. So it's good. Sometimes we can get really, really neurotic or really worried about our rules. And so, if someone was like, "Oh, Nando, what was the temperature today?" And I was like, "Oh, I think it was, 5 degrees outside," but it really turns out it was 2 degrees outside. Um, you know, but I thought it was five. So it's not. I'm not intentionally lying. So I shouldn't be getting hard on myself and thinking, "Oh no, I broke this rule. I broke this precept. I'm in trouble now," or that was really bad what I did, because it wasn't intentional. It was what I believed was the truth. But with not lying, it's actually in the suttas, the Buddha spoke really strongly uh, about the about lying and the dangers of lying. He said that someone who's capable of telling intentional lies is capable of any evil. So it was really huge criticism of lying. And but you can just see in life how many problems that makes. Someone tells you a lie, and you have a complete misunderstanding and wrong view about situations, about something in life. And even for yourself, when you start telling lies, like, there's so much suffering and worry and that you create for yourself. There's that saying, like, you have to tell 1,000 lies to cover up for one lie. And you see, it's just people, when they're lying, they're worrying. They're, "Oh, will this person find out? And but that person might know the truth. I hope he doesn't tell her." And and creates this whole mess. And we're trying to make ourselves peaceful. We're trying to put an end to suffering. So if we're getting caught up in this, it's not it's not working out. We're going in the opposite direction. And then you see, like, some of the long-term results. Like, if someone who lies all the time, they no one's ever going to believe what they say. Once, it's the boy who cried wolf, right? Once people start to think, okay, this guy, he lies, that's just what he does. Everything they say, they don't take at face value. they don't believe necessarily. And so lying can be really harmful, really detrimental. And this, it also covers white lies. So, sometimes there's this idea that um, it's okay to tell a lie if we think it's going to help someone. So, so it's good to avoid those two, because that is still lying. Um, but it doesn't mean we have to, just bluntly tell people the the cold hard truth all the time. I remember when I was a kid, there was a movie. It was Jim Carrey, and it was called Liar Liar. And the premise of the movie is he's couldn't he was a liar, like pathological liar, and then he wasn't able to lie anymore. So what would happen was he'd just tell um, everyone like the absolute blunt truth, like no filter, full on like that. That was the comic comic factor of the movie. And but you don't have to be like that when you're not lying. You don't have to tell the cold hard truth. You just don't lie. So you avoid half truths. Sometimes it can come out like with exaggerations and stuff too, or you're telling a story and you get really into it, and all of a sudden things were a little more exciting and a little more dramatic than they actually were in person. So we want to be mindful about those and try to avoid some of that. But the next one for right speech is to avoid malicious speech. So this is like gossip and like, turning people against each other, trying to create problems for each other. In Thai, they've got some really great idioms for some of these things. There's this one they called a nok song hua, like a two-headed bird. So this is someone who hears something there and comes over and says it here. And then what they hear here, they go over and say over there. And like we've all seen and known people like this who like to repeat back and forth and to what was said to try to create problems between people. And and this can create uh, so much difficulties for everyone in life. And even if what they're saying is true, yeah, this person actually said that, but it's if if I hear what this one person said and go over and tell that person, it might just make a lot of problems for that person. I don't necessarily have to do that, and a lot of times that can be creating problems. And so we have to really really watch what we do with that, watch our speech in relation to that. And uh, the third one is to avoid harsh speech. So harsh speech, it's like this is using like abusive or insulting speech, or uh, telling something very rude, very bluntly to someone. Like, there's those people, the I tell it like it is people, who will just say something very, very blunt to you, not being sensitive to time or place. And, they try to, a lot of times some people, it might actually be their character that they don't have great filters or aren't good with social situations. But, a lot of times they get a bit of a kick out of saying something, a little edgier, and just kind of try to cover it with I just tell it like it is, like going up to someone and being like, "Man, you look terrible today." Yeah, that's not really unless it's really like you're trying to tell them like, "Oh man, you look terrible today. Are you okay? Did you sleep well enough? Are you sick?" But sometimes, people will just say it just to be mean, and they try to write it off. I know there's a lot of times, from what I understand nowadays, there's this whole thing of like, it's just a joke. Don't worry, it's just a joke. But, someone will say an insult and then they'll try to cover it with, well, it's just a joke. Don't be so sensitive. It's like, actually, it's an insult. You may have told it funny, but it's still an insult, and it still can fall under wrong speech. And then the fourth factor of the wrong speech is just avoiding frivolous speech. So, this is just kind of, pointless banter and chatter. I mean, we all do it to some extent, but to really, really try to avoid that, because, a lot of times, again, you get into this. just chit chatting, like, you know, just talking on and on about nothing. And a lot of times, you know, you can really lose your mindfulness with that, and then you do start saying unskillful things, and, you know, just because, you know, trying to fill up space, trying to keep it going. But it is okay to talk to people. It's not, we don't have to keep noble silence our whole lives. And then, so when we're avoiding these things, we're avoiding, you know, lies and intentional lies. We're avoiding malicious speech. We're avoiding harsh speech. We're avoiding frivolous speech and chatter. When we do have are using our right speech, the Buddha actually gave us some more guidelines for this too. You know, he said, he said, if there's something and it's untrue and not beneficial, don't say it. If there's something which is untrue and beneficial, don't say it. If something true and not beneficial, don't say it. If it's true and beneficial, find the appropriate time and place to say it. And this is really important too, because even if it's true, it's beneficial, it's something, you know, really important to tell the person. You know, if you get that wrong time and place to it, it can completely ruin the whole thing. You know, it could be like, or it can create a lot of problems for the person. I remember once when I was a junior monk, and Lumpur Mahamorn, a very senior monk, he had just died, and we were, there was, you know, hundreds of monks had showed up. We were all in the sala, and we were his, you know, his body was there in the sala, and and everyone's just in the process of moving the body from where it was sitting into the coffin. And this one monk decided it was time to start talking about a serious issue to a senior monk. And he just dropped this, oh, I'm going to be doing this and this and this and this. And the senior monk kind of didn't take it very well. And I remember afterwards, the junior monk who had said this, you know, came up to me, and he was really surprised the senior monk didn't take it well. And I was like, I mean, we were moving Lumpur Mahamorn's body. It was, I couldn't, we were literally moving his body. I couldn't think of a worse time to say that, you know? And so, so even, so it just really, it didn't go over well because just the time and place were really wrong. And so, so it is really important, and to, for us to really, you know, we can work on our speech, and again, you know, we all mess up on it now and then. You know, sometimes, you know, we maybe exaggerate, or we get into a little bit of like, you know, talking and complaining and stuff. So again, it's good to not be too harsh and judgmental on ourselves, and just, you know, keep working on it. Again, like these other practices, this is something, you know, which, you know, sometimes it takes a lot of time to do. And for some people, it's very different. So, you know, you see those people in life, and I've known some who just like from the day they're born, you know, they just could not tell a lie to save their life, right? Like they just, they're so honest, and they just couldn't do it. And then you meet some people on the other end of the spectrum, and they, you know, and they just, you know, they just lie a lot and don't even realize how much they're lying. And so you see, like, so, you know, people are different, they come in different things. So if, say, both types of those people are trying to work on developing right speech, the one's going to get it a little quicker, and the other one's just going to take more time. But, you know, just to be patient with yourself, and it takes time, and we have to work on developing this. And then, so that's right speech. And then the last of the five precepts. So going back to the five precepts, the last one was to avoid intoxicants, and like and getting like drunk or high, getting intoxicated. And so there's a few points of why we try to avoid it. One is, you know, it's moving us away from mindfulness. So we're not getting more mindful, we're getting less mindful when we're doing it. And one of the other things is, a lot of times our, you know, our inhibitions go down, and, you know, we lose certain control, and we can lose our other sila, our other moralities, our other ethical conduct when we are getting intoxicated. So I remember there was this story. It was a Tibetan Buddhist story I heard once, and it was this monk, and he was going on alms round, and he went to this house, and the person invites him in. It's a lady, and he goes inside, and she locks the door behind him. And she says, "Okay, I'm not going to let you out until you do one of three things." And so she wasn't obviously wasn't a very nice person, but her the three things were, she said, either you can make love to me, which of course as monks absolutely cannot do. She said, or you can kill this chicken, or you can drink this alcohol. So this monk thought about it, and he's like, okay, well, if I drink the alcohol, I'm only going to be harming myself. I'm not going to be harming any other beings. I'm not going to be breaking any other rules. So it ended up, it was, he drank the alcohol, he got drunk, he ended up making love to the woman when he was drunk, and he got hungry and he killed the chicken and cooked it. So because he got drunk, he ended up breaking all of the precepts. so so it's one of those things, we do think it's just harming us, but it can end up harming everyone around us, and because of that inhibition, breaking all those other precepts. So so yeah, so it's one of those things, these five precepts, like, just working on trying to keep these precepts, and or if or trying to improve at least how our precepts are. This is keeping precepts is a form of practice. So, if we are in a situation in life where we can't have time to meditate, and we feel, oh no, I've given up my Dhamma practice. If you're keeping precepts, you are still practicing. You are still keeping, a Dhamma practice going. You are still doing something which is beneficial for yourself and beneficial for people around you. You know, so I'd like to offer that to everyone as a bit of reflection for this evening.